Thanks, Jacko. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Will Hutchins with Espresso Capital. Really excited to be partnering with Winning by Design to bring you today's webinar on remote selling post-COVID. As we all know too well, COVID is forcing companies around the world to change the way they do business. And importantly, it's also requiring companies to find new ways to engage with prospects and to close new business. And that isn't necessarily an easy exercise, but what's clear is that companies that are able to successfully adapt the way they sell
webinar
will be better. Oops. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, keep going. We'll find who it is and we'll.
Okay. Sounds good. So I was just saying is that while it's not easy to change kind of the way we sell quickly, it's what's evident is that the companies that are successful in doing that will be better able to certainly weather this crisis and potentially even come out the other side even stronger. We're certainly seeing the signs, early signs of this in our own portfolio. As many of you on the call may know, Espresso is an active venture debt lender to software companies across North America. Through this crisis, we've been actively engaged with all of our management teams to share best practices to help them adjust to this new reality. And so for that reason, we're very excited to be co-hosting this webinar with Winning by Design today. The team at Winning by Design has helped hundreds of SaaS companies and their investors accelerate revenue growth. And I know they're going to bring some unique insights into how companies should think about selling in the world where everyone is working from home, as well as how those strategies can be utilized to gain advantage post-COVID. So with that, I'll pass it over to Jacko van der Kooi and Julie Prasovsky from Winning by Design. Jacko, Julie, over to you.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jacko. I will quickly stop the screen share so you can see my face as I pop into your screen. That's just me. I would love to get to know you. Can everybody just help us out and type in your window where you are from? If you can type where you're from and which part of the world, I would love to see where you're joining us from, which city. We're looking at the chat to see where you're from. There we go. Tanusin from Toledo. Oh, lots of people from everywhere. Montreal, Vancouver, obviously well represented from Canada. Great. New York, Ottawa. Well, it is a pleasure and a treat to be here with you today. We have something special prepared for you. And what we are going to do is we're going to share this with you. It's going to be kind of a rapid pace because we believe that these things are meant to keep you energized and entertained at the same time. What you're going to find is a series of questions you can ask and polls you can participate in. We are looking forward, since you now have been able to found the chat box, to use that as well as use the emoticons. When you look at the bottom of your screen, you will see a reaction. If you can give me a thumbs up or a hand clap, if you can start seeing that reaction. Thank you, Nicholas. I see you there. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. So, oh my gosh, everybody's finding them. Okay, so look at that screen and find where your thumbs up are. Yep, appreciate it, everybody. Okay, so that's good. Like I will occasionally ask you a question and see if you can affirm that and see if that is the right thing. And that gives me the idea of you saying, yeah, we have the same problem. You do not have to put your camera on. It's always appreciated. Camera just means that I'm talking to a person, so I can see you. We are going to be controlling the mute. Actually, we'd love to hear from you also speaking. It is just sometimes that background noise becomes distracting. That's it. That is for the roundup. Let's get started. Today's session, what we're going to talk about is that we have three big issues, what we've seen. We see an issue with pipeline creation, often top of the funnel, referred to as top of the funnel, marketing-like problems. We have pipeline conversion, winning deals, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, often referred to by sales. And we have the retention and expansion challenges, which is, like often in the hands of customer success. Now, what I'm going to ask you is to use the chat box and give me a feedback. Which one of these, A, B, C, or D, do you currently are experiencing? Are you currently experiencing A, pipeline creation, B, pipeline conversion, C, churn, or D, all of the above? I'm going to see A, B and A. A lot of A and Bs. A little bit of churn. There's one churn, A, B. Most of this second, okay, a lot of A's and B's. Okay, and so what we're going to talk about is the part of the funnel that has a lot to do with selling, although it will instantly apply to all matters. The stage has been set for us. And what I'm going to try to depict is that there's essentially a catenation of primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary impacts that are happening. First of all, the pandemic has grounded the sales teams and have canceled events where companies like where departments like customer success depended on. We see secondarily a high activity in the funnel. It is not unknown to see a certain amount of like pipeline filling up at the top of the funnel, a lot of activity going on there. That activity is not yet converting in sales. Those of you who are experiencing high activity currently, a lot of demo requests and so on, can you give me a thumbs up? Are you experiencing something like that? Thank you, Steve, Richard, Amir, and Jeffrey. So we see that there's, this is common. This is pipeline creation. What we find is that the buyers are at home and they're trying to be productive. So they're looking for activities. And so one among those things is to go for demos and so on. Second, we're going to see a slowdown, tertiary. We're going to see a slowdown where key meetings are being put on hold. Have several of you, have you experienced, give me a thumbs up if you are seeing that your pipeline is starting to fall through? Meetings are being put on hold. They're not declining. They're not saying we're not buying from you necessarily. That is also an option, but primarily they're saying like, hey, hold on. Okay. And so that is the tertiary impact that we're currently seeing. Pipeline is filling up, which shortly be followed by meetings being put on hold. Thank you, Gary, Dario, and so on and so forth. Now, the next one is we're going to find that we need a new way of selling, because most of the sales processes have been optimized for, in parts, field sales. Now, what I'm going to I'm going to describe that the new way of selling is a form of remote selling. I have a 6-part agenda for you, and we're going to fly through it. Number one, we're going to start with the productivity gap. In this productivity gap, what you see down here is the dashed line is the number of COVID cases, projected over the next months following something similar that we've seen in Asia. And what we see in the white, as in return, we see that productivity has dropped. What I'm going to take, like the depiction of here is, or what I'm going to show you is that it will take a while for us. We'll hover around that bottom for a little bit. As we come back, there will be certain setbacks. And what you will find is that there will be lingering issues. This rapid decline and the rapid holding on the funnel is currently taking place, although your project managers and your buyers, your sponsors are still trying to get the projects. You may be put on a hold later on once it heads for executive approval. This creates what you see here, a gradual recovery. It will take a while for us to get there back, and we're gonna end up, and I want you to be ready for this, we're gonna end up to a new normal. I want you to think that you're not gonna, like 3 months from now, you're not just gonna walk into a building while everybody has been in lockdown mode for 2 months, and people are just gonna say, well, walk in, go shake hands with anyone you want, go to the kitchens and the bathrooms and stuff like that. Most likely that will not return to that way of doing business, in particularly because there's an alternative for sellers. You can go remote. So for companies to bring in a traveling sales professional or a traveling customer success professional is simply not going to be, we're going to not return to that. That means that the gradual recovery, we're going to take us a while. And what I want you to think of that is that you're not competing with COVID. You're not competing with the market. What you're competing with is your competitor who's creating this, who's on this gradual recovery trajectory. What we're trying to find out is, can we accelerate this? Can we go from here to here? Because if we can get your companies to do this, then we accelerate, and through acceleration, we're gonna get some benefits. Now, in order to do that, we gotta prepare now. We're, while we're headed for the downer route, while we're in that temporary low, we can prepare. We can then ramp faster based on new technologies and that helps us to gain market share. That is the goal of today, what we're trying to assume. And what you're going to see is if we get your company to ramp faster than your competitor, then that is the fastest way of gaining market share. And this is really once in a lifetime opportunity. I want to say once in a lifetime. It happened in 2008 too, so that maybe it's two in the lifetime opportunity. But this has happened before when, like when you're in this mode. This is one of those things that we can relay. We're in a very unique situation, but this one we can learn back from what happened in 2008. That is the productivity gap. Now we're going to use a technique called remote selling to help us acquire that market share. Now, what is remote selling? Well, I was recently, really enthused when I listened to Lieutenant General Todd Simonite, who is the head of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and he was describing how we are faced as a country in the U.S. as a country with this very complicated challenge. And he said, the more complicated the problem is, the simpler your solution you require. And what he was referring to was using the existing resources all around him. So instead of building hospitals, why don't we use certain facilities that we can do? And he was using that in order to amplify the solution that he was putting in place. And the solution he was going to put in place was existing infrastructure. So too, do I believe that we have to look in this complicated problem that we are experiencing, using solutions that are already in place. And what is in place is a global cloud infrastructure. We have devices everywhere. And as you can clearly see, apps are, we have lots of apps, lots of tools and different apps for everything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to depict here that there's different kind of sales organizations right now. And I'm going to try to see in a second which part are you of. Now, in number one is mostly in person. You do a lot of what we call field sales and in-person selling, a lot of in-customer visits. And when you do that, you essentially are complementing that with an occasional remote session. In option number two, option B, what we're going to see is you're going to have a lot of, mostly remote, and you occasionally attend an in-person session, let's say once a month or once a quarter. And then inside sales, which is an organization, customer success often fits into this category, where you primarily are inside, but you are, normally at trade shows, you visit clients. Now, may I ask, by using your chat box, can you let me know which one are you, A, B, or C, or D, none of the above? So we're seeing a lot of A's and B's. And Amir, you're D. Can you type in, are you a product-led growth company? Am I right to assume that? I saw there was one D in there. So that, yeah, okay, that's a product-led growth. Great. And so product-led growth means essentially, in case of Amir, that he is using the online infrastructure in order to sell, and his existing clients are acting as marketing and sales professionals. Great. And so what we see is that, like most of you are in the A and B, meaning that you're still dependent on quite some field sales activity. You're still dependent on, on things that happen. And that's what we're going to tackle today. Now I'm going to describe a few terms before we go that. You have a centralized organization and a distributed organization. Now, centralized, as it pretty much looks, you're all happening in one building, and remote selling in a centralized is what we're very used to. Inside sales organizations work like that, but also customer success teams have worked like that. When we look at distributed, that causes a different challenge. So for example, for customer success teams, they work remotely for most of the time, but they were very distributed. So when they work together, they really could enjoy each other's knowledge, venting to each other, best practices being shared. And now, because they're distributed, that is forming a new kind of challenge for the manager. And that is, the challenge of distributed. Currently, we're not only having remote selling, we're also having remote and distributed selling. And so under the term remote selling, we refer to this. It is centralized and distributed. Now, what I want to describe next is the action item, what is synchronous versus asynchronous. And this is a key to understand moving forward. This will immediately elevate you to a new level of sales professional or remote worker professional if you understand this concept. Essentially, synchronous selling is what you see on the left. You see multiple, you see me, the seller, being the white line, and then we have a variety of roles, an initiator, a champion, and a decider joining the conversation. And what you'll see in those square dots, those are meetings. Those are calendared meetings. And so a seller, I meet with the initiator, for example, during a Zoom session like we have today. I'm meeting them at the set date and time. And then a few weeks later, I'm presenting the proposal and the champion joins me. And a few weeks later, the decider may join the kickoff call, for example. And so what you'll see down here is 3 meetings taking place, but everybody shows up in the same Zoom meeting, in the same on-site meeting at the same time. That is referred to as synchronous activity. We all are synchronous with each other. However, what we notice is that there's also an asynchronous way of selling. Asynchronous, for example, is instead of me saying, hey, I'm sending you the proposal in a PDF form and then we schedule a call, I'm sharing the document with you, or I'm sharing a video with you of reviewing that document. By sharing the document, you know, as a client, you can start editing it. That is asynchronous selling. The big value of asynchronous is I don't have to schedule a meeting, and therefore it is generally going a lot faster. And as you see in this case, the proposal, everybody can comment on it. It gives a real, you know, like live and real and authentic approach. Now, what you'll see that this asynchronous selling just accelerates things. Again, this is remote selling, which we can do synchronous all together in a meeting, or asynchronous. I can give you content as a seller that you can work with. Now, what we see per today is that most companies are, as you're indicating, in either a stage 1 or a stage 2. A stage 0 is if I go back to the 1990s or something like that, all key meetings are performed in person on site, including customer success meetings. Like everyone travels on site. What we see, you know, like several enterprise sales teams have moved towards performing key meetings via video and screen share. Now, we are currently being put into that stage 2 mode. Is like, you know, starting a few weeks ago, all key meetings are now performed. Every meeting is performed via video and screen share. And this is what is taking the full advantage, you know, like of what we're currently doing. Now, what we're seeing is the entire current sales process, the process that customers are currently using. Historically, the field sales process, the field customer success process, that same process is being executed. Simply every meeting is simply translated to becoming an online meeting. And that is the challenge where I'm going to try to depict, is that really right? And so we're going to see that there's further stages. To unlock these advanced stages, you got to adopt to a new online process, which we're going to talk about, where you can leverage the best of asynchronous selling, where you also can leverage what we call non-sequential selling. I won't go into too much detail other than tell you, non-sequential means historically, we're stepping through stages. You know, you go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, or you go from the discovery meeting to the demo, to the proposal, to the negotiation. That is in sequence, and every customer steps through in that sequence. Non-sequential means that customers get to decide where they start. Send me a proposal first, and then I see if I want a discovery call. So, hey, I do the proposal, then I get the demo, and then I may want a customized version of the discovery call. That is non-sequential. It goes in the opposite direction. And utopia, you know, like what we're all looking for, is based on a closed loop system. Currently, we're working on open loop, something for future. I'll just skip that, but something for a future episode. Now, we know what remote selling is. What we are now going to do, we're going to use tools as a force multiplier. Now, what I'm stepping through is, you know, like I want you to, for a brief second, listen to this audio from this voice from the past, and yeah, listen to it and just enjoy it. Oh, like that.
I remember reading an article when I was about 12 years old, I think it might have been in Scientific American, where they measured the efficiency of locomotion for all these species on planet Earth. How many kilocalories did they expend to get from point A to point B? And the condor won, came in at the top of the list, surpassed everything else, and humans came in about a third of the way down the list, which was not such a great showing for the crown of creation. And but somebody there had the imagination to test the efficiency of a human riding a bicycle. Human riding a bicycle blew away the condor, all the way off the top of the list. And it made a really big impression on me that we humans are tool builders. and that we can fashion tools that amplify these inherent abilities that we have to spectacular magnitudes. And so for me, a computer has always been a bicycle of the mind.
When I saw this video recently, like a few weeks ago, I discovered it. It's a little obscure video to find. And when I found it, I mean, it caught my heart. I mean, like, I feel like this is it. This was exactly what what the point I'm trying to relay. And this point being, are there tools that we can use that can help us? Now, what you'll see down here is I'm going to discuss the 5 biggest things that we previously felt will require an in-person meeting, and I'm going to take you through what that is. Now, I'm using these iconography in order to make a point. It's not necessarily because everybody is, like having steak dinners and playing golf and buddying up and traveling. In-person meetings could happen in different ways. It's just there to amplify a point. One of the key things, for example, is that steak dinner that we're so used to. Let's start early on with lead generation. What I find is that lead generation, that as an enterprise rep and having led a variety of enterprise reps in generally are doing really well on their own brand protection. They don't, like in person, they sell themselves really well. What we find is that they are not doing that on LinkedIn. We find that in generally they are fearful of that, and that's coming from a well-known reason. They believe that LinkedIn is a form of marketing in many cases. And they believe that if they start selling this on LinkedIn, and if they start focusing on LinkedIn and they start sending it, that they're distributing content from the marketing department to their network that they build over decades. And so they don't just want to use that network for all this marketing fluff to be sent. However, if we can unlock that, if we can unlock their skills that they have built so well, then we can see through remote selling, like we can do it on a much larger scale, but also much faster. And so I'm going to use my own profile down here, and I'm going to make a few points here. The key on a good profile, and the key how to do good lead generation is the idea and the concept that content is your outbound call. And so what you're going to see is that I'm going to leverage the person's brand, you as an enterprise rep, versus that of the company. We know that combined with content, your personal brand is 10x more powerful than the company's brand for most companies that here. Obviously, if you are, like a super well-known brand, then there's a difference. But for most companies, your personal brand is more powerful. Meaning, if I'm engaging in a conversation and you reach out to me as the W on the right, I'm not willing to engage in a conversation. But if I see you're a person with a picture, you want to engage, it is 10 times more powerful. Now, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use content as great outbound. And in this case, we start off with, like what you'll see today is this webinar, and this webinar is a form of a workshop. In this workshop, we are providing you with great content. This content was, created in a visually stunning way. It was meant to make sure that, it has deep, in-depth insights, doesn't, promote the winning by design brand, is not selling espresso very hard, is not intended to sell. Its primary intent is to educate. When I insert that, in this case, in a form of a blog post, mind you, it is a status update, not a form of a blog post, a status update, you'll see that I'm doing a few things. I add an opinion in order to curate for my audience, and I provide a call to action. What? Now, what it does, it gets a certain amount of content. So I can now, it allows me to send an outbound. If you see down here what I'm doing, once I've posted that on the 3 dots at the right up, I can send it to a private message and share it with a trusted network. I would not do that if that content was, like so-so content. But if this content is so valuable, now, when I'm going to switch into live mode, and we're going to go to, in this case, to my profile. I'm going to go home. I'm going to X that out for a second. I'm going to take a look at my own profile. There we are. And I'm going to take a look, and I'm going to show you, for example, this article down here. This has over 20,000 views. And now, and deep engagement. And what I'm looking for in a second is I'm looking for certain things. Now, what you see down here is a multi-page white paper. What happens on a multi-page white paper is as you peruse through it, it essentially holds you for a number of seconds. And those seconds, LinkedIn counts as engagement, and it's gonna up your exposure. It's gonna say, hey, early on, I let it only out to 100 users. Now I'm gonna let it out to 1,000 users. And it must be understood that, you know, like, doesn't matter how many followers you are. In this case, I got this amount of followers. When I publish an article, LinkedIn does not send that to this amount of people. They do not. They choose who to send it to. And so you got to make sure that you're able to allow you to do this. You got to make sure that you engage in conversation and so on. Now, the moment in time that that post launches, I'm going to get engagement. And so I'm going to look at it in a form of engagement. Down here, I'm clicking on the article appears. And what you're going to see, if somebody has a comment, I immediately like it. Then I can start a conversation. So in this case, I started the conversation with Dr. Howard Dover. And in that conversation, LinkedIn recognizes that and it starts promoting. And it starts promoting it more and more. And as a result, your views goes up. Now, this is something that an enterprise rep does naturally. Like Dutskies, this is having a conversation with prospects. It is naturally, but the key down here is valuable insights and content, meaningful, with a proper call to action that doesn't scream, I'm selling at you the entire time. That is the key down here. Now, what we're looking for, although views is an indicator, I want you to know views is not really the determining factor of a successful article. Likes is neither. Likes sometimes is more a popularity index. It's just good that you get likes, because the moment you get likes, your clients are distributing this to their networks. But what I'm really looking for is comments, and there's a few other things that I would be really looking for. What I'm looking for is the engagement. It gives me an idea, for example, which companies are really engaged with us. It gives me an idea which title and so on. Now, what I'm going to look for, the best engagement has it when people start sharing the article. That is where the conversation really starts. I'm looking for, like this, what Scott Graves is doing. He is pointing to a number of other people. That is really the success of an article. And I'm going to describe that next to you and showing you where that, now having seen some of the practical stuff, how it works, I'm going to put that as the screen builds into the reality.
Jocko, we have one quick question from Jesse Willette. Do links slow the spread of your content? So he's been using a product called Shield App to measure this, and he thinks it does. But I know that we've done some testing on our end, and we haven't found that.
Originally, we learned that LinkedIn originally was slowing down when you put a link in the post, and as a result, like LinkedIn said, hey, hold on, a person, because I don't want that. I'm going to demonstrate it to you why you don't want that. So previously, when I put a link down here, this is essentially a link to our webinar. Now, our webinar, the problem with that is that it's sending you offsite, and LinkedIn did not want that. But what you see down here is LinkedIn has now created a LinkedIn short link, a bit.ly form that they are creating. Last we spoke, this is a few weeks ago, LinkedIn assured us that they're not slowing you down by choice. They're not having an algorithm that says LinkedIn here slows you down. They're not. We have heard rumors that has been the case, but we have not seen that till date. When we asked them, they say no. They said no to that. There's a lot of people, you say, hey, I put the link in the first comments. And, although that is definitely an option, but we haven't seen that. So next, you're welcome, Jesse. And so please feel free. What you're going to see is if you have a question, please type that in, because what is happening is Julie, as you see what she's doing, my colleague, she will be able to, slow me and down and say, whoa, there's a question. So feel free to chat that question in. Now, what this allows us, as I said a second ago, it allows us to create that outbound call and send that message in a private message only to your network. This is only the people that you share it with, and which is an article. I'm sharing this article, and with it, this is a modern approach of outbound that your AEs are expected to do. Similarly, you can see, as I described a second ago, your inbounds. We're not looking as much as likes. We're primarily looking at those who have commented and shared that on it. It creates an inbound. And all we're trying to do is not to sell, just to start a conversation. And generally that is with the intent of providing more information. That is the total aim of what we're trying to do. What you see down here is that we have copied the inbound and outbound model, and it starts on the left. Visually stunning and very dense content is becoming the norm to attract people, not clickbait. It needs to be in-depth content. Now, what we see is if you do that, your networking online is done in a very similar way as an in-person and should be able to be executed by an AE. But it's dependent on you providing insightful and quality content. In it, you can ask for referrals, you can respond to inbound and replace outbound calls. This is a warm-up round for what is about to come next. In about like 5 minutes, everybody is rushing to install a new app because they're all going to be like, whoa, 5 minutes. We're going to lose half the audience as they're clicking on the new tools that they're seeing. Okay, navigating the organizations. ID and brief here is as follows. Most buyers today, if you navigate organizations, most organizations, people inside organizations in most vertical markets provide more than enough depth to facilitate the navigation process. Plenty of it. What we are going to demonstrate is that there are tools that allows you to do really well remote selling. What I'm going to do down here is I'm going to apply how to navigate through an audience with turn-by-turn directions. This is the winning by design turn-by-turn directions. What you see is referred to as a buying center, and it's the different roles that buyers play that you have. So instead of looking at the CTO and the CEO, we can say, look at the decider. And the decider can be a C-level officer, it can be the director of security, it can be the manager of sales ops. But there's a role of a decider, an influencer, and so on. This is a buying center. What you'll see here is the depiction of that, how we navigate through an organization, and like what steps you have to take. We then provide turn-by-turn directions, what you have to do, X, Y, Z, and this provides the winning by design blueprint, how we navigate. This is how we train sales organizations, how to navigate through. This applies to both sales, marketing, and customer success. This can apply to all. For example, in many cases, marketing departments are really trying to identify the initiator up front, the champion, and so on and so forth in order to get into an account where ABM programs are focused on. The middle is often towards sales, and towards the end, we're going to see customer success. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say is like, man, if I only had the initiator at all my big accounts, like this, I just want, Fortune 500, can you tell me who the initiator is? Because that would make my life so much better. Can I get a thumbs up from those of you who really just want to know who the initiators are? Does this resonate? I just want the initiator. I just want somebody who can crack open an account. Give me an account of a thumbs up if you think that that's what you're looking for. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Uhura. Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, I know. Daryl is already laughing like, yes, give it to me. Okay, so this is what people want. And so what I'm going to say is I'm going to, look at this. Now I'm going to do this live. So I'm going to switch back to live LinkedIn mode. And what I'm going to do is we're going to look for, in this case, I'm going to describe it on the basis of Dominic. First, I'm going to describe on one that we know, and then later on, we're going to track that back. And what you see down here, Dominic is the co-CEO at Winning by Design. And she's a very reflective title. She's the decision maker at our company, but she's she's the person that most people want to get to when you want to sell something to Winning by Design. That's the person. Sellers, stop selling now because I've unleashed just all the sellers onto Dominique. But what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for that. Now, what I'm launching on this, I have this little app here on the right, this little plugin, and I'm going to kick that into gear. And what I'm going to see is I'm going to get an analysis. AI is applying, and it's saying Dominique tends to be outgoing and decisive. Gives me a little bit of like a thing. And there it says Dominique is an initiator. It gives me what Dominique is. Furthermore, it maps this, and I'll come back to that later on into this diagram down here. But it gives me so much more. It tells me also what Dominique is good at. It tells me when I speak to Dominique, what I need to be doing. It tells me what Dominique is motivated by. It even gives me do's and don'ts of what to do. And I can get, once again, like if I want to say, I want to email Dominique and I want to set up, schedule a meeting, it will give me like an outline of what that is. This is the advances of tools. when I showed you that clip of Steve Jobs, bicycle of the mind, this is now starting to come into full play. It starts to demonstrate what can be accomplished. Now, going back to the presentation, what you're going to see is I'm going to now use that and start scaling that up into enterprise grade decision making. So, like if I click on that thing, like that app is called Crystal Knows, and it gives me the initiator. Now, where do I know the word initiator from? Well, the initiator comes out of this disk. Is called the disk profile, and the disk profile has all kind of personalities. What I'm going to look at is I'm going to look and say like, hey, that initiator maps to my buying process. And I'm going like, hey, if the initiator fits there, Jocko, where does the champion and the decider fit? Well, if you know those, can you also help me where the executive buyer, the gatekeeper, the influencer, and the user? What I now am able to do, since we are mapping the roles to the personal profiles, we are able to track this back to somebody's LinkedIn profile and put forth our account development reps, our sales development reps, and have them search for these roles on the target accounts based on what I'm looking for. This allows me, if I'm in marketing, to identify who is it. Daryl, yes, I see Daryl is shifting around. Like, give me a thumbs up if that just hit your, like, are you like, how many of you are on trying to Google Crystal Knows right now? Like, just give me a thumbs up if you're Googling secretly Crystal Knows. Yes, Kasad, I knew it. See, yeah. Because you go like, whoa, this is too much, right? This is like, whoa, what just happened? Okay, well, stick with me. You got the rest of the day to, you got 10 profiles. Everybody will do their own profile first, and you will be scared how accurate it is. But before you do that, I'm going to have a few more of those. So stick with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get advice down here. I'm going to help, and it gives me guidance on what to do. That really allows me to navigate the organization. I can now identify the people faster. I can develop reports with those people immediately, and I can do it at a lower cost. Next step I'm going to do, I'm going to run the stakeholder meeting. The stakeholder meeting is where we generally have, like the group all combined, all the people involved in the deal, they're getting combined in order to make a decision. The problem is, historically, they had some challenges. Now, with remote selling, we can do it immediately at a significant lower cost. If we look at a typical stakeholder meeting, we see that it often takes weeks to get everybody in the same room. This does not come overnight. It sounds like, hey, hey, I'm going to be on site next week. Yes, but then they are not there. They said, well, I can't make next week because I'm on vacation. Can you come a week later? And you got like, oh yeah, no problem. I'll come a week later. For most sellers, it means like, I got to come 2 weeks in a row or stay 2 weeks. Many actions from one big meeting create delay. What we see is that when you have a stakeholder meeting that really pull everybody together, you walk away with a one-pager full of action items, which sounds like it's really good, but it actually is debilitating. List full of action items, of which every action item can be considered a roadblock, is debilitating. And so what we find also is, if you see down here on the screens, that it's often harder for people remote to join. Now, either everybody is remote or everybody is in person, then it works. If there's partly remote and partly in person, it really becomes challenging because for those people who are remote, they just have a hard time to partake in part of the side conversations. Also, what we find is harder to distribute materials. Those in the room will have printouts, those online have electronics. And so either somebody doesn't have a printout or somebody doesn't have it electronically, but you're gonna have that. The roadblockers in the room are sitting in the back, are often trying to, like gain all the info needed to be a roadblocker, and you not really can take them into conversation. And also what you have is the opposite side of the table syndrome. All the sellers sit on one side to a team of 2 or 3 people, and all the buyers sit on the other side, which is generally the disadvantage of the on-site meeting. And by the way, for those of you who try to mix, have you ever, like I'm pretty sure that some of you, like me, you know what, I'm going to sit on their side of the table and see how that works out. That does not work out either, because the decision maker has to look sideways the entire time at you, is not a good way of doing it. So that whole mixing of the table is not as easy as it sounds. It looks great on paper, but it doesn't really work out in practice. And so what we see is that the on-site meeting has a certain amount of disadvantages. What you see here is a form of a stakeholder meeting, in this case with the team at Merapar, who has graciously given us approval to do that. Merapar is a Dutch-based firm, friends of the family, so to speak. And what you see down here is what we were doing. At the top, you see that the three of us have a professional setup. In this setup is a former used projector screen behind me. This is a general projector screen. It, does a good job on deflecting the light or distributing the light. I have lights in front of me, and I have a backlight that shines on the back. All that combined for about $250 worth is the investment. We believe that although we know that everybody has a different working from home environment, within soon, everybody must be capable of creating a fairly positive setup this way. And that's what you see down here at the top three. You can want to make sure you can read my facial expressions, see my, so I can make eye contact. What you also see is that all the names are visible. This is important later on because I want to call out Maurice, or maybe in the chat, I want to say something to Siraj, but I want to have a conversation with them. And having the name allows me to address that person. What we do commonly is we set, and this is going to be moving forward, a big item, when you're dealing with your sellers, whether they're customer success people, marketing people, or salespeople, we're going to set them a short setup. Okay, I'm going to stop here, take a sip of a drink. I want to see if there are any questions. Give me a thumbs up if you're following so far. Give me an applause if things are going well, or ask a question if you have a question. I'm rolling my shoulders because I'm telling you, these online meetings every day are wearing on the body. Okay, let me see. No questions yet. Okay, and so where I'm going to go is I'm going to go next. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how you can read body language. Okay, I'm going to ask a question. I want all of you to look at these 6 lower pictures, which are our customers. Who of them appears to be distracted? Pick the letter or letters and tell me who is distracted on this picture. F, Patrick, A and B, yeah. Okay, so you see, most people are all picking A, B, and F, right? And that is, like an indication because the person obviously is not looking at it. Now, I know that Siraj has his camera set up to the side, so he's not looking at the camera, so he's looking at the screen. This is a common form, for example. Now, may I ask you, who appears to be waiting to talk? Who is ready to say something? Who's like itching to jump in and start talking? Okay, number C is itching. Yes, C, exactly. Aaron is right there, ready to jump in and start talking. C and E, yep. Alex too. Thank you very much. Now, who appears to be listening? Who appears that they are like intently listening? D, Maurice is listening. D and E, yes, Maurice. And so what you can see is, look, visual cues can be read and responded to the exact same way how we do it in, when you're in an in-person meeting, reading the body language. The primary way of body language is to face, obviously, we're looking for nervous tick and, like seeing if the foot taps as well. But in many cases, you cannot look under the conference table, but you can read certain body languages, sitting back, leaning forward. They're all indicators. Going alpha with the arms up. These are all indicators. Some of those can be translated. And what you'll see here is the ability and the training of sales professionals need to be done, but in a new world, in the online sales world. But one of the most exciting things that we see is the use of that chat. And in this case, you see that Max, being on the Winning by Design team, started conversation with Siraj in the chat. What we find is that not everybody, most people are not comfortable to raising their voice on a smaller topic. And so what you'll see is that most people want to ask a question and wouldn't mind just typing it in the chat so that they are slotted for when the right moment appears. In this case, what Julie is doing, she's facilitating question, and she will be able to lob it in. So you as a person don't have to feel like you're interrupting. What Siraj is doing here, what Max is doing, he's having a conversation on the side. And in this case, Siraj asks a question, and Max is starting to independent of the entire meeting, have that side conversation and providing a link to some material through that. That is a meaningful conversation to answer a question that can take place on the site. This indicates that the stakeholder meeting can be done online. It indicates it's easier and faster, it democratizes attendance, and it allows for immediate follow-up. What we find is that the meetings need to be shorter. We find that 45-minute meetings do better than an hour. We find that 25 meetings do better than 30 minutes. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the proposal review. This often is a steak dinner, you know, like this is that time you stop in. But what we see today is that submitting a proposal, when you send it over, whether it's in PDF or whatever format you send it over, it's like throwing it over a wall. Now, whether we are tracking exactly which slide you're on in the presentation and how long you're there, I think that is over the top. What we are going to look is we're going to create something different. We're going to leverage asynchronous selling. What I'm going to demonstrate down here is the concept of two things: recording of a review of your demo combined with sharing your proposal. Sorry, recording of the review of the proposal combined with sharing the proposal. In step one, what we see down here is, in this case, Roelof in a second is going to record a video where he provides a voiceover on the proposal via a screen share. Then what he's going to do, he's going to share that proposal via email and put that proposal in share and edit mode. And as that proposal hits the decider, that decider then forwards that inside the organization, and that document, the video gets watched, but also people start editing the proposal. They start providing comments, and those comments give us the feedback. I want to take you through what that looks like. First, I want to give you a real life experience of that so you have a good feel of what it looks like. So it's not theoretical. So here I'm just clicking in.
Hi there, I hope you're well. I just wanted to take the opportunity.
And this is Roelof starting it. Full, in this case, a particular tool called Soapbox. We see the same tools like BombBomb, for example, is an excellent tool as well. And what these tools are doing is I want to see the full body language. I want to listen to Roelof. I want to get to know him.
To have a couple of your minutes of your time to talk you through the recurring revenue.
And now what you'll see is Roelof is explaining the proposal. Now in a second, as he steps through the proposal, what he's going to do, he's going to show you, he can demonstrate things, he can show examples, he can show different points of view, and he can even go into the proposal, as he will do in a second, and to discuss pricing. Now, what he does with that is there's a certain technique that we're using during this particular thing. And I wanted to take you through that, what is happening here. Now, in this case, Roelof records that video. It needs to be short, 4 to 5 minutes. It needs to be side by side. Halfway during, he's going to go side by side. And what he's seeing down here, what he's doing, he's essentially using, when he's going into the proposal, he's highlighting something. This draws the viewer's attention. The screenshot and combined with the screen share, the headshot and the screen share gives the right experience. Next, what he's doing, he is then sharing the proposal in draft mode. This allows people to add comments. When you add comments, you know, like we take those comments, and rather than just adding the response and hit resolve, we then take those comments and we add them in a QA section. And what is great, it creates a living document. When our sponsor, coach, champion sees all that, they started to forward the proposal even further because the questions that he or she asks are being addressed. What we then see is once we start seeing this, we see that the proposal gets shared with people. And, you know, this allows us, you know, like, and this is not like sneaking in on anything, we're not trying to, but we see these names of the people, which allows us to map back to our decision diagram, the blueprint earlier, and see where the people fit in the organization. And it allows us to understand what's going on, but at the same time, it allows the champion very transparently to forward your proposal internally. This creates a great experience. It creates the video gives a personalized feel of the proposal. It adds relevance, and it speeds up the process because it's asynchronously. Like the meeting, the stakeholder meeting was synchronous, but this happens asynchronously, and it goes so much faster. Also, because you are incorporating your voice, your expert voice, it increases the quality as you review it. What we see down here, the last one that I'm going to take you through, is the use of a reference call. A reference call historically has been, you know, like hard to do. It historically can take weeks for the reference call to occur. You feel like you're hindering the person who's so kind to act to be on the reference call with you, and you feel like you often have to bother them. Remote selling are techniques and tools that can provide you, with relevant, can provide the buyer who needs to call with relevant insight, avoid skewed calls. and encourages peer network. And with skewed calls, I mean, if I'm providing Eric as a reference, then I'm telling you what Eric is going to do to me 50 minutes before the call, or in his case, about a day before the call. He's going to say, Jocko, I got a call with Jennifer tomorrow to act as your reference. What do you want me to tell them? And then he says, okay, what do you want the weakness to be? What do you want X to be? And so, so I think that is part of the challenge that these reference call are. And it doesn't have to be that way. What I'm going to show down here is G2 Crowd. And in G2 Crowd, I'm going to use, I don't know, many of you are aware, but you can see the LinkedIn connections. Now, what I'm going to switch that, do that as well live. And again, I'm just using Winning by Design because I feel like we're going to demonstrate down here. There's a number of sales consulting providers, obviously well-respected. John Barrows, Matt Cameron with Sassy. These are all well-respected companies. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to our reviews. And like in this case, as I click on reviews, I'm going to see the opportunity. This is very unknown by sellers. Sellers do not know this. I'm going to say, hey, what kind of company, what kind of user role do you want? In this case, I want an executive sponsor. And at what kind of company do I want that to be? Oh, I want that, let's say, like I'll pick the bigger one in computer software. And so now what I'm getting, executive sponsors, Jesse pops up here, and I can say, sort it to the most recent. And then it starts sorting me to the most recent one. Now, this gives me an idea. If I now find a person that has this open, for example, Leah, I can send her straight an email and start asking her. I'm not asking anyone else. I'm asking Leah for this. Now, this allows for an immense amount of opportunities that I want to, take you through for a second. This is a modern way of providing a referral where it's not skewed. And in particularly, what I'm going to demonstrate is that as I do all this, is that they have two categories that I really like. What do you dislike from this vendor? And what recommendations? Now, what you dislike, I just copied and pasted it this morning. I wish we would have made the decision sooner. Oh, well, we purchased Winning by Design during the busiest season for them, which is in January, February. It's the busiest for us. And, November, December, January, February. And so it's just a tough time because scheduling dates and times is harder. But if you see also below, this is what most people want from a reference call. I do not only want to hear, will these people deliver? I want to hear, what are the insights I need to know to have success? And so what I like down here is that it says, understands that the needs of your organization, blah, blah, Winning by Design will help with life. But it is good to make sure there's agreement between the revenue functions on the path you want to take. In other words, get everybody in the room, right? They give you a heads up. They tell you if you go through it and you go insights via insight, make sure you have data in your Salesforce. And it tells you all the things, almost 200 of them of insights. That is way more meaningful than just a buddy of mine calling, the buyer up and saying, yeah, they're good. That is not necessarily the best reference. This provides like an accountable form of a reference. And then you can seek out that contact. This tells us that the reference call can also be digitized. Valuable insight, it drops the skewed calls, and it gives them the ability to network right now. This allows us to build the mathematical model. Now, I'll stop here for a second and see if there are questions. Question on these 5 tools that we've presented, questions on the process and how to use it. Give me a thumbs up if you're still with me. Energy up, good up. Okay. Now, may I ask, at this point in time, what was the biggest key takeaway that you have? Type in the chat box, what one stood out the most to you right now? Proposal review, yeah. Got it, okay. Can you write in chat all the tools? Yeah, we'll do that, but also this is available as a post session as well. What were your key takeaways? The dip and recovery graph at the beginning, yeah. Great. Yeah, creating bigger and more insightful content. Well, keep them coming. This is good key takeaways. The proposal review is simply when you put your proposal, when you are doing a screen share of your proposal, you're talking to it and you create a 3 to 4 standalone video. You can use Zoom, for example, for that. You can use, but there's tools that are dedicated to it, like a BombBomb, which is a video messaging tool. And Showbox. These are like, like tools. Okay, great. So what we see here is I'm now going to give you what the gentleman said or the lady said before is the dip in the graph at the beginning and the recovery. That's what we're going to hone on. We now know tools can get it done. I now need to know why and how. So what I'm going to look at, what we see down here is our data that we've acquired over about 500 clients. And what we see to the left is this is based on annual contract value starting at the 5K price. It's not product-led growth, so I apologize for that. We start slightly higher. And as we go to the right, we're going to see wins per year that the rep is needed, 72 deals at 5K. That's about 360K, I believe. The win rate of those on average is 13.6% that we know of. We have measured that. The sales cycle is about 11 days. And the amount of calendar meetings is 2. Now, what you'll see if you step up about to 20K, that means that person closes 24 deals, 19.4% at 38. So that AE runs on approximately 480K quota annually. All these meetings, most of this takes place online. For most SMBs, they've already been adjusting to 100% remote, but not distributed sales necessarily, but remote. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, what is happening at the lower end here? Well, we see that there's a group of accounts down here that have not been 100% remote, but are distributed very much. What I want to take a look is that example here. And I'm going to take that example and say like, hey, take a look. We're having about a 30% win ratio, about a sales cycle of about 150 days and about 12 calendar meetings. Now let's apply science. Recently, I was listening, like you, I'm worried about what lies ahead of us, but I found it very encouraging to listen to Steve Jobs. That would be very encouraging. to Bill Gates. And he said, is like, look, science is on our side. And I thought that I wanted to show you why science and how science is on our side. What we see down here, a sales cycle has a win rate. Has a win rate and a sales cycle to it, an opportunity converted into a win. In order to do that, a series of meetings is being used with emails and calls in between. But it's essentially the calendared meetings that I'm going to look for. Those calendared meetings generally have a conversion rate. Like 90%, 95% of the meeting, did a great demo call, 90% of the case you move it on to the next round. Did a great proposal review, 90% of the time you move to the next call. And so what you'll see is that in this case, the entire win rate of 12 meetings, 12 times this meeting leads to 28.5%. At the same time, I'm going to look at what the sales cycle is. I'm going to add all these up. And so if I add up the time between meetings, because it's disproportionately so much bigger than the time of the meeting itself, so I'm adding up all these times, and that creates a sales cycle. Adding up the meeting, sales cycle, multiplying the conversion rate of each one gives me the win rate. Now, may I ask, as you go to the chat box, are you currently measuring stage-to-stage conversion rates and sales cycles in Salesforce? Yes, the answer would be great, but B, we have most, C, we have some, D, we are completely in the dark. Where are you at? We do, yeah, A, yes, we have most, but miss a few. So we're seeing a lot of, we're seeing B's, C's, D's. A few people are in the dark. That is common. I don't want you to feel like you're alone in the dark.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting, Jacko, because when I talk about this with customer success audiences or with CEOs, when we're talking about customer success, the answer is always, no, we don't track. CS teams typically don't track the different meetings and the conversion rates of each meetings to track and forecast for renewals and growth. So it's an expected mix on the sales side, but just some insights for the CEOs in this on the CS side to think about it as well.
Great. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. What we see down here, I'm going to show you the anatomy of an enterprise deal, the conversion rate, and how 21 opportunities come in. 81% of those opportunities convert into the next stage, the discovery meeting of the champion. Therefore, I got 17 meetings left. 95 of those convert to, 95% of that converts, and therefore I got 16 demos, and so on and so forth. I want to draw your attention to the proof of concept. It, in this particular anatomy, looks at 80% conversion. I wonder how many of you, give me a thumbs up if how many of you run a proof of concept. If you run a proof of concept as part of your demo, give me a thumbs up. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Martin. Uhura Solutions, thank you. And so what you'll see here, those are high. Generally, many of you know that the proof of concept can run at 40, 50%. And when that happens, you generally are wasting too many resources. They need to be that high. But what you see down here is that process. Now, what I'm going to take that process, I'm going to turn it into a playbook. Many of you may have a playbook like this. It's like an enterprise stage playbook. Stage 1 is discovery. Stage 2 is where you present the solution. Stage 3 is where you step through the process of buying. You come out with a proposal, and then you negotiation lead to commit. This is a form of a playbook. What you see in this playbook, I'm going to try to depict now what the impact can be. I'm going to show you the impact of reducing the amount of meeting, decreasing the days in between meetings, and increasing the conversion rate per meeting. This is most likely going to wow you because you're going to see certain metrics suddenly pop out. First, I'm going to start with reduction of the meetings. Now, what I'm going to demonstrate here, if I have 12 meetings that lead, the outcome of that is a 30% win ratio. So my win rate is 30% from opportunity to close, then that means that on average, I need to convert 90.4% of every meeting, of every 12 meetings, I need to convert 90% of the time to success in order to achieve 30%. Now, that is depicted here. Every one of those meetings needs to convert at 90%. And I'm using linear. It doesn't have to be like I showed in the anatomy, but on average, it needs to be. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, what if I can hold up that ratio, but I'm reducing the amount of meetings, and I'm reducing it by 2. What you're going to see is that I'm improving my win ratio from 30% to 36.4%. So my win rate is going up as I reduce fewer meetings, because essentially I'm eliminating 2 meetings of multiplying by 0.9. But would you expect that to grow up by so much? Like many cases, people are worried now, are surprised, like, hey, that's a lot. Now, what the reason I'm saying this is with online selling, of course, I can reduce the amount of meetings. That's part of it. I don't have to travel as much. I can be more to the point. What we also notice in this is an interesting stat, because it demonstrates what the difference is between enterprise selling and SMB selling. If I take an SMB sale at 10K, for example, to the right, and I have an average 4 meetings with an average win rate of 17%, it means that an SMB seller only needs to convert 4 meetings at 64%, where his or her enterprise counterpart needs to convert 12 meetings at 90.4. This gives you an idea that you cannot just upgrade that seller to the right, to the left, the seller on the right, the SMB. This is for another day, but it tells you the reason why we're saying don't just upgrade professional SMB sellers to enterprise sellers, because overall it won't work. This is the mathematical reason behind it. That is the impact of reducing the amount of meetings. If I reduce from 12 meetings to 10 meetings, I increase my win ratio. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the amount of days between meetings. What we see down here, if I take an average sales cycle of 150 days and divide that by 12 meetings, I come on average between 12.5 days between meetings. If I reduce to 10 meetings, then logically, with an average time between meetings, again, I'm just showing to you the mathematical principles behind it, then, like times 10 meetings is 125. But if I can reduce the amount of time between the amount of days between meetings, I get what you call compound impact. I'm combining both the impact of fewer meetings and the days between meetings. Now, the reason why we see is because this is truly happening. What we see down here is a Gong printout, and it shows us the calendared meetings. Those big round bubbles are calendared meetings of 1 hour and 30 minutes. And it tells us when those meetings takes place, and allows us to measure how many meetings are taking place, what the average time between us, allowing us to monitor if a person is more or less successful. For example, if you look at that and we see, for example, at the top down here, which deals we're looking at, you see over the period between March and April 7, you see like these two deals progressing with the smaller bubbles refer to emails and phone call exchanges. The bigger bubbles are meetings. And what you see down here, this entire pipeline at the bottom, of which I've cut out all the deals on the left, this entire pipeline sits in the forecast for this month. And what we see here is clearly the difference of that what is qualified at the top and that what is arguably not qualified more towards the bottom. This depicts to you what we are looking at measuring these days and the way how tools are being capable of measuring that. Now, next what I'm going to do, I'm going to increase the conversion rate. I told you that previously, if I convert 90.4% at 10 meetings, it would lead me to 36.4. However, if through the use of remote selling, I can increase the performance, then you're going to see the impact of that is even more whopping. Of course, you're going to say, Jocko, dude, if it was that easy, it ain't that easy, but it's possible. What I'm showing you that mathematically, what you need to focus on is on three things. You need to focus on reducing the amount of meetings. You need to focus on decreasing the amount of days between meeting, and you need to increase the performance of conversion rate per meeting. We believe that proper playbooking and proper training can lead to all these three. Like reducing an average meeting from 12 days to 11 days should be possible. All we're looking for is one meeting a week. Well, previously, it took us a lot of time to get on an airplane, to fly down there. We were naturally slowing down our sales process. This shows you how we can accelerate that. You can prepare now, learn how to do that. So you can ramp faster, like we demonstrated with the days from 150 to 110, and then you can be more successful as we demonstrated with the win rate. This creates you that thing that we spoke about, gaining market share. As I wrap up in the next minutes, which one of these metrics stood out the most to you? Please go to your chat, type in which one of these metrics stood out the most. Which one of these three, I'll bring them back up. Reduction of the number of meetings, decreasing the amount of days, or increasing the conversion rate. Which one? Pick one, which one you spoke out. Reduce the number of meetings, type it in your chat box. Decrease days, reduce the number, reduce, yeah. For example, what you need to train on in that, like these are things you can train on. And that to me is really important. Train them on this. And if you train them on it, this will happen. If you don't train them on this, it's not gonna, well, you may still happen as a side impact, but you can literally work with people on this. You can train them on doing that. This allows me to think about the next steps. The next steps, I'm going to take you through, like with a funny close, not a funny close, but hopefully a very motivating close. But I'm going to pitch Winning by Design for about 5 to 10 seconds. What we recommend is that you create your playbook, you operate the tools, you train on expert skills, and all these need to be dedicated to online. Us, Winning by Design, we offer that solution. We have, are capable of helping you with that. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. This is the recommended 30, 60, 90-day non-standard, a standard non-customized plan. And what you see down here is first and foremost, you gotta get your team in a room and agree to a 30, 60, 90-day transformation plan. And that should entail marketing, sales, account management, and customer success. That is a priority. Next priority, you have to have every executive to reach out to all your top customers if you have thousands, or all customers if you have hundreds, and secure direct communications with a plan, what you're going to do. Then next step I'm going to do is, what you need to focus on is creating that playbook, assess the current processes where you start, and so on and so forth. What we want to make sure is that you train a few people. I have earmarked those that if you don't have a lot of time and you need where you should start. So be an expert at your remote sessions, be expert at LinkedIn networking. This is vital. And be expert at proposal and using of videos with proposals. Those things have proven to be really effective. We can help you with that. You can come talk to us. We have a team all around the world. As you could see, we're #1 rated on sales consultant and sales training. We can do a workshop for your team, or we can create a first outline of what needs to happen with a benchmark. Conclusion, having talked about the next steps and everything, I just wanted to say one more thing. before we open it up for Q&A. One more thing. In 2008, what we came out of 2008 is we saw that in post-2008, we had inside sales, SDR, marketing and sales automation, the tool stack. All of this happened post-2008. And what you'll see, customer success was invented post that time, or at least became popular. We've also, data became more accessible. In 2008, we became the SMB market, turned 100% remote sales. It became automated with tools. It became data-driven, and it became started to develop specialized skills. What we see in 2020, heads up, I don't think we're going to do well if we're dependent on the hand pump. I think that, we're just no longer going to be allowed in the building. I do not think that much of that will change over the next year, maybe even years. And that means that we too have to start thinking about enterprise sales becoming 100% remote, automated with tools, data-driven with specialized skills. My question to us is, we're the ones writing our own story. We now look back and we say, oh, post-08, all those things. We are in the midst of this, of writing our own story. And with that, I want to say that the stage has been set for remote selling, and I would like to open it up for questions.